For us as an organization, this is one issue that has been reoccurring for many, many years. I think what is the only difference at this point in time is the COVID-19. And let me also share with you that at the level of NLC, we have done many publications interrogating this issue, using the information provided by government, and also putting across options that will be pro-people and also will be able to address the issue. In fact, I will be sharing one of the documents with you, the report on the regulation, which I shared with the former Minister of State for Petroleum when this issue came up. First, sir, the fundamental reason underpinning PSM subsidy is the fact that wholly we import what we consume. And because of this, what also make up the price includes issues like taxes, issues like insurance, issues like freight, which if we are refining, will have actually made the price to come down. This is one issue we need to deal with. And this is one issue that I think government must summon the courage once and for all to address this issue. And we have provided a lot of information for that to be addressed. Because the figure you gave us, 161, we don't even know what constitutes the 151. And I'm sure that part of what I've actually read out also constitutes what constitutes the price. And therefore, we have said time with that number, that those issues that constitute the price is part of the inefficiency in our system, which government hitherto have been paying and christening as subsidy. And what we are merely doing now is to transfer those payments of inefficiency to consumers, which consumers now will pay, but we have not addressed the issue. So fundamentally, what is required is for us to address this issue. And I agree with you. The president said, no, subsidy is a fraud. I agree that is a fraud. And if it's a fraud, do we address it or do we transfer it to the customers? That is where the issue is. We don't need to transfer it to the cost. And let me tell you what we can do, sir. In fact, in this document, which we have had engagement, in fact, larger than what we are having here, the engagement was so broad that all ministries, department, and agency that has to do with the downstream participated in the process. And it's well documented where government requested for 4-year moratorium to be able to take on board all the suggestions that was made by the NLC. And as I speak to you, we are back to the same point, the same argument we are putting on the table. And sir, the comparison we have made in terms of price around the West African sub-region, one clear factor that has affected our country is the issue of devaluation of our currency. Most of the countries in this sub-region have been very stable, including the CFA. And therefore, when we are making comparison, we should also take those issues on board. Auto purchasing power parity. What of even the issue of minimum wage across the West African sub-region? Because as I speak to you, more than 90 countries of the world actually have minimum wage in place. Those are the issues that is biting very hard. And workers and citizens are crying aloud that there is much burden on us. We have increased VAT. We have increased some taxes. We have increased now the fuel price. And we have now increased the tariff on electricity. An ordinary worker that earns 30,000, you are sure that with the tariff now, he can't pay less than 10,000. In fact, even higher level officers were complaining seriously. This is the predicament we're in. And therefore, let's also look for solution. How do we mitigate this impact, which is very pronounced on workers, which is the main issue? And going deeper into the argument about also the issue of the downstream sector, some of the solutions we have preferred, including how to ensure safety of our pipelines. How many kilometers of pipeline we have is already documented here. What we can do to safeguard the pipelines is already here. What we can do to ensure that our 4 refineries are working is here. Let me also make the point, sir. In fact, if we do the needful, the 4 refineries we have, because at the level of NLC in 2016, we brought one of the best experts in the world on oil and gas, a Nigerian, who is based in Texas, to actually come and give us a talk and what policy option we can advise government. And that policy option in 2016 was also forwarded to government, where he said that our 4 refineries can be upgraded, that they are virtually new, that around the world you have refineries that are 100 years old, and refineries can actually be upgraded from X capacity of refining to Y capacity of refining. And he told us clearly from his study, why the refineries have refused to work is because there is some powerful cabal that are into importation. And because it pays more, they prefer to continue the regime of importation than actually allowing our refineries to work and also allowing even private refineries actually also to work side by side with our refineries. And if this is true, we need to don't stop this entire process of allowing few to now make sure that our refineries don't work. Because if the refineries work, I'm sure, even if we are selling at international price, as we are saying, it means the price is going to come down. Because the component of the price we are paying include the issue of taxes, demurrage, and other things. So all of this will come down, and therefore it will be beneficial to Nigerians. We will be ready, certainly, to work with government to address some of these fundamental issues that are inherent in our system. And it's not rocket science. If during the time of Yaradua we gave 4 years moratorium for all those things to be fixed, and then those things were not fixed, and we are yet here again to look at this issue, I think this is where the problem is. And I think this dialogue will certainly resonate the issues that we are not able to do and what we need to do. Because if we continue in this direction and in this light, it then means that there will be no end to this issue of increase in the pump price. And therefore, the process of increase in the pump price will continue. And historically, we have also documented, when did the rain start beating us? It was under Babangida. Although the first price increase was under Gawan, it was under Babangida. We had a publication on it. All the increases of petrol, the reason given, the interrogation, the policy option given by the NLC is also documented in this document, which I will share with you. But the more recent one is the one of 2016 and the one of 2011. So, sir, if we want to address this issue fundamentally once and for all, which we have also tried to share with you, is actually to do the needful. Those refineries, because I don't also want us to continue to follow the advice of neoliberal policies, which clearly the hallmark of it is something that all of us are aware. They have come severally saying that the supremacy of market forces, currency devaluation, trade liberalization, removal of subsidy, commercialization of welfare services, such as healthcare privatization, all of this. Certainly in developing countries, we have had challenges with these neoliberal policies. And therefore, I think the best way is for us to look for homegrown solutions that will be a win-win situation. Government will win, the people also will win. But this whole approach of transferring this inefficiency for us to continue to bear is really the problem. Yes, the major problem now is actually the COVID-19. And in the COVID-19 challenge, we must also be innovative. I agree with you. We have to be innovative to look at what can we do, but not to continue to squeeze the ordinary Nigerians, including workers, to a point that already now all of them are at the edge. Many people are at the edge. They cannot actually survive because of the high cost of living. Anytime you increase these two commodities, you are sure that the cost of goods and services will go up. Transport will go up, no doubt. Cost of food certainly will go up, no doubt. There is no magic about it. Whether there is COVID or not, anytime you increase the cost of petroleum products and the tariff in electricity, because production lines will be affected, they will transfer the cost actually to the consumers. And therefore, the cost of goods and services will go up. It's natural, and it has happened time without number. So clearly speaking, what we need to do is to protect this vulnerable group of people, the workers and the citizens. And the only option we have is actually to go into the issue of production, which is not rocket science. We can't do that with a specific timeline. And all the timeline we have given in the past have not been respected. We can't give timeline. What is happening to the refinery? Let me tell you what has happened recently. Recently, workers bought the power plant in Sweden. It's workers' money. They bought it. When the inefficiency becomes unbearable, they use workers' money to buy it, and it's now being run effectively. So clearly speaking, if we look at those sectors, we have unions. We can put our heads together. We can look at what can be done. Nigerian workers can even buy those sectors we are talking about. If every Nigerian worker contributes 1,000 naira on the membership register of both TUC and NLC. Now we have 12 million registered members. It's possible. That happened in Ethiopia when they went to look for loan and the World Bank said they are not credit worthy. They said, well, let us test run what we have done with Ethiopian Airways, because Ethiopian Airways is owned by government and every family in Ethiopia has an investment into the Ethiopian airline. That's why it's working effectively. And they did that in their power sector. They generated more than what was required. Now they are working actually to give power to all the neighboring countries. That can be done in a very transparent manner, but not transparent our commonwealth, because we want the refineries not to work and then we transfer them to private individuals and private hands. A situation that we can do, and it can assist government in generating revenue, that government can use those revenue actually to run and take over the entire West African market. If we are saying that it's because the cost is lower here and the West African market, there is now the issue of smuggling, we can take over the entire market. It's about market economy. And this thing can be done. We can partner with government to do all of this. We are passionate about it. But I think coming around to now do the same thing as a normal ritual, anytime we have financial difficulty, will not actually take us anywhere. So I think we will challenge NNPC that we have what it takes. The sector has what it takes to actually bring a policy option that will address the issue of subsidy and will make the system to work optimally and will also address the issue of the so-called corruption in the importation regime, which is important, because when you say full deregulation, what I understand is that if I'm selling spare parts, you just put standards and everybody should import. But if we say that in a product that we have it in Nigeria, it is a product that God has blessed us. So we cannot compare ourselves with countries that don't have the resources. We have it. Our only problem is how do we refine for domestic use? And this has continued for 30 years because of the inherent issues I've mentioned. So instead of transferring it, let's work together to address the issue and we'll have a win-win situation. I think this will be the way out. And I also thought that some of the good innovations you have put on the table, including the issue of using gas to power our vehicles, it will have made sense if 50% of that promise has been achieved and we are here on the table to now discuss the way forward. It will have made sense to all of us because we'll have seen the approach to it, that yes, something has started and we can key into it. This is what we are expecting. But we are tired of lamentation because at the level of NLC, in fact, if we have seen the resources that have been committed to understudying our petroleum sector, we are exporting our jobs. And that's why when I was saying, I said, there are issues of decent jobs that can be created in this sector. Raw materials can be created. The fertilizer we're talking about, we're importing some of the raw materials. If our 4 refineries are working optimally, that can be done. And that is a possibility. It's not rocket science. And I think, sir, that is our passion about how to make our country to work, how government can earn more revenue without squeezing the people. We can earn more revenue from refining and selling to the international. I read also about the private refineries coming up. They said they are going to sell at international price. Are they going to add other charges, hidden charges that is inherent in the current regime, i.e. the taxes and the other things? What are they saying that they are going to sell at international price? What constitutes the international price? Those are the charges we have mentioned. Are they going to import the crude oil? No. Are they going to pay freight? That is no. So why are they saying that it will be sold at international price? Do they still want to monopolize the system and then continue to exploit Nigerians? That is no. So those are the issues that I think Labour is very passionate about. It is how to make Nigeria to work. We are ready to partner with you to make Nigeria to work. But I think at this point we are now is, what do you have on the table to actually cushion the effect on workers, their families, because they have been pushed to the wall. They are already at the edge. Do you have anything for us so that we can now say, yes, despite these challenges that have come up, this is what I have for Nigerian workers, that they can be able to have something that can cushion this effect for them. This is why we are, because already the value of the minimum wage has been eroded. The purchasing power parity, when you compare with all West African countries, we are already on the ground. That is the reality. In Ghana, compare their minimum wage with our own. You will see their minimum wage. In all of the West Africa, including Niger, that have just started refining recently, they are now serving us with products. That is not how it ought to be. As the largest economy in Africa, in fact, they ought to copy from us. So this is where we actually get the missing link run, and this is where I think we can fix it. And on the issue of power, I will allow my deputy, who is from that sector, actually to shed more light with us. But I think one of the issues also in the power sector is that people should pay for what they consume. we shouldn't pay the inefficiency in the system. And I think when the Senate said, okay, can we then make meters available? I think many Nigerians thought that the first thing is actually to make meters available for every consumer. Where are people that are paid for meters? For many months, the meters are not supplied because the discourse claimed that once you are metered, they are going to lose revenue. And why are they also rejecting power? Power is being generated, but consumers are not actually getting the power. Why? Because they reject, they don't want to pay. So those are the issues. So what do we have on the table also to cushion the effects on workers and the working people and their families? So, sir, I think those are the few remarks that I will make. The deputy will speak on power, then my colleague, the TUC president, will also add to it. Thank you very much.
I want to tell you that this is the first time I'm seeing the NEC chairman, and he doesn't know me. And we are talking of a sector where the workers are, and they are critical stakeholders. Without the workers, you can't generate electricity. And you have spent how many years? I'm not sure we have met with the Minister of Power. We have spent so many years, we don't know the challenges, we don't know what they are passing through. Beyond that, we are consumers as other Nigerians. Beyond that, in the power sector reform, the workers are supposed to control 10% shares. Therefore, we're equally owners. And we hear the increase on the air. How do you think that such system could go on? This is about the 5th tariff increase since we started. And each increase does not go with increase even in salaries. To you, the cost of production has to do with machine. It doesn't affect workers. And your regulatory framework does not include whether the person working there is trained, whether he's feeding, whether he has condition of service. And these things are affecting us that each time we see increases, we seem to suspect that the regulatory commission has been hijacked. And I want him to deny this. Because if what you are talking of is profit maximization, you are tailoring towards the owner and not for the interests of the masses. And then you know that there's 40% government ownership of the discos. And you need to inform this House when you declared dividend on government's 40%. You announced before this House that you spent 1.5 trillion plus 40% government ownership. And then you are doing it for the private sector. In a sector you say you have privatized and you have subsidized in trillions. I willfully want you to give us information. How much was the tariff before privatization? What was the megawatts being generated before privatization? How much was government spending on electricity before privatization? Let's see whether government was spending up to 200 billion. And now after privatization, we now subsidize with 1.5 trillion. Still government 40% ownership. And we think all is well. And you now have what we call private sector monopoly, which is more dangerous than public sector monopoly. And this thing has continued on and on and on. And I want you to tell us the model where you increase tariff, where you privatize without metering. It's important we get this at this critical point in our history. Because even the Indian model you adopted, you can go to the store and buy meter. Meter is not in short supply. But here, you increase tariff, you did not meter. Even the woman that sells gari in the market brings the cup for measure. If you want to buy fuel, there is meter. It is not the duty of the consumer to provide meter. The measure is by the owner. Any product in the market, whether rice or whatever. Now here, Nigerians are made to provide the meter, and then they equally pay. And the discourse are there, and the regulator is there allowing Nigerians to pass through this. Now, how do you call it service reflected tariff? When what you are thinking of is what you spent. The same 4,000 megawatts at the eve of privatization is the same 4,000 megawatts today. Where lies the increase in services? because it's important to, and then you are talking of DISCO paying this. When we have Niger Dam Authority and Electricity Corporation of Nigeria that led to the merger that produced NEPA, it was a case of the DISCOs collecting money, refusing to pay to the GENCOs. On the basis of that, government merged them to the one company. Today, we're having the same problem, and we say we produce MBET to take care of the shortfall. And the MBET is indebted now, today, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I would have preferred a more solid forum so that we can discuss this on and on and on. There is no basis for this tariff increase, especially coming at this point. And then you privatize, you sold companies to those who know nothing to the sector. And I repeat it, the three bases for privatization was that there must be managerial ability, technical competence, and there must be an FDI, foreign direct investment. None of this, no $1 came into the economy of Nigeria as a result of privatization, which you guys supervised. And then you borrow money from Nigerian banks to buy Nigerian electricity company, and then where is the economy growing? Now, finally, I want you to give us the link how increase in tariff will improve Nigerian economy, or whether it is public disaster, private gains. Let us know. And why you should sign PPA, power purchase agreement, based on installed capacity and not generated capacity. If the installed capacity is 10,000 megawatts, every month you pay based on that, and not whether they give us 1,000 megawatts or 2,000 megawatts. These are dangerous agreements that are capable of, destroying a nation. So I think, you have come to tell us what you did, but you didn't consult us. I want you equally to tell us whether in the whole of NEC, whether either the consumers or the labor or the workers are represented in what you are doing. So that's where you have this problem of connection. We have not connected, and it's not likely we are going to connect. And you have not explained to Nigerians the essence of power poverty. And show us where Nigeria belongs in the whole global scale. A country that has the highest level of power poverty. Ordinarily, 1,000 megawatts is supposed to take care of 1 million people. Now we have 4,000 megawatts for about 200 million people. And then we are here talking about tariff increase year in, year out. I think we should think of something else. Unless the NEC is for the private sector. And if NEC is for the private sector, you can go ahead and defend them. But what has happened now is against the poor, is against the citizens of this country, is against the workers, who work there day and night without anything to show for it. So I want you to go back and look at, what you are going to tell Nigerians, or reverse it until the conditions are met. Mr. President came out with a policy that the whole country should be metered. And we have not been metered. We entered with tariff increase first and foremost. You have not even addressed the issue of, rejecting loads, which is common. Take this megawatts. They say, no, we're not going to take it. Because they are charging based on estimation. Whether they generate 2 megawatts or 10 megawatts, they will still collect the same amount of money because they are estimating, and they're estimating because there's no meter. All these issues must be addressed before you even talk of either increase in the tariff or not. Because any commodity that is not available cannot be affordable. Any commodity that is not accessible cannot be affordable. So we need to go back to the drawing board. The first thing is not to increase tariff and to report back to us that this tariff, is to make us to remain in business. It is not. I don't see why government should continue to subsidize this. Let me end here and hope that this interaction continues. But I think, we have not done what we're supposed to do. Thank you very much.
One or two people that may need to contribute to those answers might not have enough time. If you look at the high table, you will see that the high table is not complete the way we started. And I want to take it that is the plan of the government side to behave like that so that we don't have full participation. But notwithstanding, I want to remember vividly that when this regime, the new government that we have on seat in town, and our angel, when they were to come on board, I remember one of the things they said is that President Muhammadu Buhari, that is coming on board, was the one that established refineries, or I don't know, maybe it was the one that constructed it. I know something was mentioned about that. And no matter the problem, he will come and fix it within 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. When the Minister of Petroleum presented his papers, I was now wondering that, sir, I watched you on NTA some days ago when you mentioned that for the past 4 or 5 years, the refineries have not worked. What happened with our evaluation that the president was coming to fix it? If we are to open a scorecard, sir, I don't know what you are going to give that point. You also mentioned, and I'm well informed, that despite the fact the refineries are not working, in the past 4 years, we have spent billions of nairas on maintenance. I just look at it that we all know we're on the same page that the refineries are not working. Why are we pumping billions of naira for maintenance? Who is collecting it? This government promised us transparency. And if there will be transparency, the first thing is that give us analysis of how we spend the billions of nairas that we have spent on refineries that are not working. Who are the contractors? I think we should be looking at that area. And that could be one of the costs why we cannot stabilize the price of petroleum for Nigerian people. Then when you look at it from the other side, I know there is a template from PPPRA on how to calculate the pump price. And I look at it very well. 80% of the items, or let me say 90% of the items are fixed. They are not changing. The remaining 10% are variable that can change anytime. And the major determinant is the exchange rate. If we can stabilize our exchange rate, which is option 1, or the central bank had listened to the order of the president to provide forex for importers, the marketers of the PMS, maybe we will not be in this situation. I'm sure the central bank will come up with an excuse that we don't have enough forex. Then why are we not having enough forex? Why? One of the answers could be that maybe we give the forex to people that are not legitimate business owners. What have we done about people collecting their salaries and allowances in dollars, and they are Nigerians, even working in Nigeria? And we are saying we don't have enough forex. What have we done about that? So, which means if we can find solution to the exchange rate, and the central bank is not proving too independent of the president, because I know the president have authorized them many times to provide forex for marketers to be able to bring in fuel. These are things agitating my mind. Honorable Minister, sir, I know severally in your engagement with the media, you have mentioned modular refineries. All our brothers over there, refining in their own technology. I know refinery technology are not cast on stone. In this country, our brothers refine alcohol. Is that not so? And they are taking it. They also refine many things. If it comes to petroleum, and we said they are illegal refineries. And we chase them away, we destroy whatever they are using without knowing that we are destroying the national economy. ILO standard says that, what do you call it? ILO standard that the informal sectors formalize them. If we have worked with those illegal refineries, by not wasting their talent, by not telling them what they are doing is stupid, and we work with them to formalize what they are doing with the help of NAFDAC, SON, and the rest, and they refine what their community can consume, we will not be talking of Forex here, and we will not be having this issue. Honorable Mr. Sir, you also promised that you are going to show Nigerians the modular refineries that have been established, and that you were supposed to do before end of May 2020. We are in September. The economy has been open either partially or non-partially for over 3 months now. I don't expect that we should be talking about modular refineries now. We should be showcasing how many we have already, where are they, and what is our plan to create more. Honorable Minister, sir, I also want to ask questions. I want to know the qualification of the people we are allocating oil blocks to, because they are also one of the major problems. We see people smiling to banks, they are billionaires at the expense of Nigerian workers. What is the qualification? If I get an answer to that, then I'll be able to evaluate if our politicians are really for Nigerians or for the political class and their friends. Because I remember during the last regime, one of the ministers mentioned how they allocated oil blocks to their friends, and also how they sold is it Power Holding or Genco Disco to their friends at the expense of Nigerian workers. So let us know the qualification for allocating those oil blocks. And also, since we are working for transparency, we should be able to publish their name, why they are entitled to it, and other Nigerians are not entitled to that. You also mentioned about cars, tricycles, and the rest that will be using gas. Even during Obasanjo, he mentioned it, that they are almost finalizing the plan to roll out vehicles that will use gas. And I know some of us here also work with President Obasanjo during his tenure. We were part of that plan. And also we worked with the last regime before this one. We were that of that plan. Why are we bringing it up again like it's a new idea? One good thing about government is that what we always hear is laying of foundations. We lay the foundation of vehicle manufacturing in so-so state. I have never heard of commissioning. I have never heard of commissioning, because if there are commissioning by now, we should have commissioned thousands of tricycles, vehicles. We mentioned Dangote. We are mentioning an individual that 200 Dangote vehicles are using gas. Sir, Dangote is an individual, is not representing Nigerians. Instead of you mentioning Dangote is using 200 vehicles using gas, you should be telling me that in the Federal Ministry of Labor or Federal Ministry of Petroleum, 80% of their staffs are using vehicles that are using gas. Then I will listen. But we are mentioning an individual in his own business. I don't know where we want to head with with this, sir. Like the NNPC president mentioned, do we want to be paying for deficiency of the transmission, the DISCO and GENCO that doesn't know how to get their money from their consumers? How can Nigerians be paying for that? This government also promised that everybody will have prepaid meter at no cost. When we couldn't get it, another announcement came that, okay, you are going to pay a token amount, but we must ensure before the end of 2017 or 2018 or 2019, everybody will have their own prepaid meter. This is 2020. Last quarter of 2020, people don't have their prepaid meter. And NEPA still go ahead to give estimated bill. A worker collecting 50,000 naira as net pay at the end of the month will be given estimated bill of 25,000. Some are having 500,000 as outstanding NEPA bill. How do you expect them to pay? So, all the promises that we have given, I think we should be evaluating them. But I have a suggestion. Why is it that anything that affects the poor people, the vulnerable ones, that is where we take immediate action? And we want to look at all means to get money out of them. All other promises that we have given, why are we not working towards them? I know we have been on our rail now, it's more than 4 years, and by now we should have high-speed rail that cut across all parts of the country. And maybe we will not be arguing about fuel price, because it's comfortable for Nigerian workers to leave their car and go by rail, and people will be able to live in any part of the country they want to live. For example, I prefer to live in Kaduna and work anywhere in Abuja. But when you give your promises, sir, you scatter people's life. Let me use that language. You scatter people's life. Because government has promised there is going to be a high-speed train that will take 30 minutes from Kaduna. Everybody will start rushing to Kaduna to go and live in their villages or build houses or buy lands. And 8 years will still be on that. It's like you are consuming our life to make your own life. This government promised that very soon nobody will travel for medical services abroad. What is the situation now? Why are we crying that we don't have enough dollars, enough forex to give the importers of PMS? Because those forex are being used in a wrong way that would not add any value to the value of the most vulnerable people in Nigeria. I believe all the papers we have listened to, their lectures, and as students, those are the questions that agitate my mind. When we are ready for solution, I'm sure we are going to fix another meeting. But sir, before I conclude, let me remind you that our expectation is that you are going to build modular refineries, you want to introduce one gas or even water generator. Yes, they are good initiative. But if you must take the EBA that we are eating from us, put an alternative on the table first before you take it away. If you want to implement all those things, please reverse everything that has been done. The increase in fuel price, the increase in tariff of electricity, and all those things, sir, please reverse it back. and implement whatever you want to implement. Then by then, we will listen to you, sir. That is my submission.
Some of you have spoken so eloquently and so passionately. I am really impressed. I'm not disappointed at all. I said when I started that we have some of the most patriotic and some of the most brilliant men in this room. And you have displayed that brilliance. Honorable Minister of Labour, I will just comment on a few things, and if you will permit, please, you will allow the GMD of NNPC and the ESPPPRO and our legal luminary, at least, because these are vexed issues, to be nice for us to at least clarify some of those issues. I will just go through some of the issues raised, and then I will hand over the microphone to the GMD, who will give the technical explanation to some of these things. I'm sure some of you who are in the industry will understand the GMD more than a layman like me. One of the problems I have always seen is that in Nigeria, we all try to absolve ourselves of responsibility. When you say that we should have consulted before taking action, some people will argue also that if you have elected someone to office, the people those you have elected to office must also take action. And then if there are issues, then those actions can now be discussed. Those issues can now be discussed. It's open to argument whether you consult first before taking action or take action before consult. I think it's just two sides of the same coin. So please, I would like us to forgive ourselves. If you believe that we should have consulted before, there are others who also believe and who have also confronted me that, okay, you should have taken action before. So please, I want us to just understand that we are just having seen two sides of the coin. Let us try and understand ourselves. I said here that, look, we are all in one country. We are all trying to at least salvage a very bad situation, which was not caused by even this government. I gave the analogy of a china, a plate on the table that has been broken. I think we are saying the same thing. Okay, some of you say all this debate on petroleum subsidy removal has been ongoing for a long time and nothing has happened. We have had this conversation, nothing has happened. The truth is that if you continue to do the same thing and expect a different result, that is the definition of madness. We cannot continue to be doing the same thing and expect a different result. So for us, we have gotten to this point, this crunch point, where we say, look, where are we going as a country? We cannot continue to be discussing. Because look at what has been happening. Labor agitates. They want more salaries. For example, I'm just giving an example. Labor agitates. They want more salaries. Government negotiates, add more salary to labor. Then the marketplace reacts. I really identify with the plight of workers in Nigeria. And I also know that the regulation, at least initially, will create some problems for the Nigerian worker. And that is why this time around, we thought it through very deeply. and came out with a cheaper solution, more affordable solution. Somebody said here, and very correctly, I'm very happy, TUC said Obasanjo promised the same thing about gas. And it is true. I am happy because it means that somebody has been here, has been around since then. We were part of the process of introducing gas as a fuel at that time. Then I was working as the SA to the Petroleum Minister under Obasanjo. We actually started the pilot scheme at that time. It was then that it was started. But unfortunately, the problem in this country is lack of continuity. Obasanjo left, and then that program was left unattended. Today, we are picking it up from here. That's why in my presentation, I already told you that already 30,000 vehicles are running on gas. The pilot scheme has succeeded. We on this side know that there is a problem. You on this side know that there is a problem. As I said, as fishermen, we try to salvage our canoe before we try to ask too many questions. Right now, something has happened in the world that has never happened, that was never anticipated. Somebody say, oh, in all this, the only difference is COVID-19. Yes, I agree. That is the only difference today. And COVID-19 has created all the problems in this country. We probably could have managed without COVID-19. But that is a factor that has changed the complexion of everything we are discussing here and everything we are not discussing here. We must realize the depth of impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 has created a lot of things in the world that has never happened before. In the history of oil production, oil prices have never gone to zero and minus zero. It has never, ever happened. COVID-19 created that situation. And that the only factor that created it, the only different factor was COVID-19. So please let us not make light of that different factor that we have today. It has gotten us to where we are, and now we are here to try to find solutions. Please, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I know that we are also angry, we have all kinds of issues, but at this point, please, let us try and look at the issues before us and find solutions to those issues. Now, somebody talked about transferring inefficiencies. Some of these discussions I will leave to the GMD, NNPC, because I've already spoken on them. Some of these issues have been addressed.
And nobody has forecast crude oil prices in the excess of $45 for the next 2 years. What that means is that for government revenue, because the production are coming from different production arrangements, what that means is that government revenues will be half of what you see today for the next 2 years or more. And also, and I can share this with you, there's a template the minister showed. He didn't speak to it, but let me speak to it. There's absolute relationship between crude oil prices and collection of revenue from all agencies of government that make up the Federation account. FIRS, including as simple as value-added tax. VAT increases with increase in price of price. This is science. There is data to support this. So when you see this collapse in the revenue from the oil arising from lower production and lower price, you will see collateral decrease in collection from the customs service and VAT, where most of our revenues come. That means that we will be in this situation. You know, it's not bad news, but that's reality, that we will be in this situation for the next foreseeable 2 to 3 years. And until you adjust, what has happened to many countries will happen to us.
We thank God it didn't happen here. I'm sure many of us were labor. We have NUT, I don't know if anyone from NUT is here, that no private school has paid salaries since we all have our kids in school. Most, at least let me say not all, 90% of private schools did not pay teachers' salary from April, May, June, probably up to today. Because all of us whose kids are in private school did not pay school fees. And therefore, they couldn't pay the teachers. And that's one of the very latent effects of COVID-19 that you are seeing. And in some countries, I'm sure you'll bear me with this, that the level of underemployment, even in America, I'm sure you all know this, how much jobs are lost because of the failure of economic activity. But in this country, with the right leadership, we are able to sustain everything we are doing, including the non-negotiable costs that the Honorable Minister has referred to, including staff salaries in the federal ministry, in the local governments, in the state government, and some of the parastatals of government. It is impossible to do this without doing two things. One, cutting down your cost. And the way we did is to cut down our budget. Today, from start of the budget that is as approved in 2020 budget as approved in 2019, to today, we are at the level of about 51% of the budget level. That means you are cutting down your cost, you are cutting down your activities, and naturally, if you don't do something great, you are also cutting down employment. But we didn't do this. This government did not do this. And to take this to the next level is for us to recognize our realities. My colleagues, I can assure you that without any doubt, and if I have doubt, I'll say it, without any doubt, it is impossible to bear this cost anymore today, in today's setting. We just don't have it. You cannot give what you don't have. This is the reality. You can't give what you have, you don't have. You can't keep what is not there. It's not possible to do this. And this is the reality that we are facing. I agree with my comrade AYUBA and comrade KYARI that yes, some things must be on ground. We must work together to make sure that these things work to the benefit of the common. I agree completely. And I had the privilege also to be around during the 2016 event where these documents that comrade AYUBA is referring to came up. And it is very true that you can reduce the cost of product when you refine locally. But what does refining locally do to you? Comrades, you may be aware that what it does to you is it takes out cost of freight from the cost of petroleum. That's one simple thing that it does for you. And that in numeric terms is about 10 to 15 naira of cost of fuel today. So if you are able to process locally, you are sure you are taking out 10 to 15 naira per liter from cost of petroleum. Other than that, it brings the product close to source. Because it brings it very close to you, it's an energy security issue, it gives you that advantage. The third thing it does, because you are procuring from international market, there may be international tax element to it, which comrade is referring to. But mind you, that 70% of cost of petroleum in the refinery, the cost of refining is crude oil. So the 70% of your cost is crude. So it is determined by the international market, unless you are able to discount it. If you discount it, it's another name for subsidy. I'm sure we all understand this. So I agree with Comrade AYUBA that we can work together to see the framework within now and when we are able to refine locally, what element of it can we work together to see that we can bring that cost down. As we speak now, we can't operate the refinery. I have said this in very many public fora, that this refinery was shut down deliberately. We have to pull it down. Nothing to do with any cartel or cabal trying to take advantage of this. I can show you. This is not the basis of our decision. And I'm sure if it is, I'll tell you. Today, all the refinery crude oil supply lines from Boni into Okrika, that's into our Port Harcourt refinery, and from Escravos into Ori and all the way to Kaduna, none of them can stand delivery of crude oil to meet the supply requirement of those refineries. The reason is very simple. I can give you an example. Between Escravos and Wari, at a point, we had 86 bundle positions. And all of them, you have to go back and clamp them. So I'm sure there are engineers here. Once you continue to clamp a line, 365-kilometer line, you know that you have a problem. And the meaning of that is that you cannot pressurize that line. The same thing is true of the Boni into Okrika line. And it's true of all the product pipeline. Let me give you an example. When we try to pump product from Aba into Enugu, we pump 10 million liters, only 3 million liters go to go to Enugu. For instance, when we try to pressurize the Warri to Kaduna line by comrades, it requires 90,000 barrels per day for it to run at 90% of its capacity. Anytime you cross 45,000 barrels per day, the line ruptures. So it's impossible to deliver more than 45,000 barrels per day into Kaduna. But that means you have to do batch processing in Kaduna refinery. You ramp up your stock. After 2 months, you now run the plant, and then you shut it down. And the meaning of that is that you take $100 crude, and you return $30 product, and then you maintain all the routine of personnel and everything that we are doing in the refinery. The option would have been that shut down this refinery because it makes sense. That's what businesses do. Send out everybody, lose all the plant parts, and put them in a carton and pack them. That's what businesses do. But we can't do this. And I've made this proposal to the National Assembly that, look, when we publish our, let me come back to issue of transparency. When we publish our audited financial statement, we knew the content of the statement. We knew that it is the issue around the subsidy regime, and processing locally does two things for you, comrades. One, it brings the product close to you. It cuts down some of the costs that would have been associated with freight. And of course, maybe some marginal tax issues that will come up. Otherwise, this is what the market is. You will still have subsidy even when you decide to sell crude. If crude sells at $50 to the barrels today, even when you process it locally today, if you want to sell it at $145, you will still have subsidy element. But I'm very happy to work with you, to bring you into the team so that we can have a conversation. I know that in the PPRA board, we have representation of Pengelson and Nupeng. And if that's not adequate, yes, I know it's bound by law, but we can still come in forward to see how we can bring everybody on board so that we have clear visibility around the template that determines the level at which customers or consumers are not exploited by oil marketing. Because what we see coming is the possibility of having an NFX structure that will enable oil marketing companies to come. Then market forces will surely come to play, but more importantly, there will be some form of control by government so that people are not exploited, and that will be done in harmony with the trade unions who are represented in the board of PPPRA. And of course, if that is not sufficient, I think we can have a conversation with the Honourable Minister to see how we can improve on that. On the refinery rehab process, we deliberately brought in other third parties into the rehab process. We invited EITI to join the governing team for the refinery rehab. We invited the ICRC to be part of the governing team of the refinery rehab process as a matter of transparency. We brought in the Ministry of Finance and other stakeholders who have no business participating in a refinery, but because we know that this is a common good for all of us. We know that not everybody getting involved will be a good thing for this whole country, and we'll be happy to invite Labour to join the steering committee of this so that all of us can see to it end to end until we deliver this refinery rehab project. We will see these ENG facilities delivered in NNPC owned stations. And then we have a plan, and I assure you, if you don't see it, there is a promise broken. It's not the promise of the past. I can assure you we'll put it into NNPC on all stations in October. Then secondly, we have a clear plan around deploying it to other fuel stations. First, as a matter of policy, we are working on that directive that we must deploy this. And it is very possible. It has been tested. There are private sector individuals who are interested in bringing the keys and the skids into fuel stations, either owned by NNPC or not, and that this cheap fuel will come into play. It will be a replacement fuel for most of the low-income earning group. And let's not miss what about PMS. Yes, it has its collateral impact on price of commodities, but let us know today that PMS, by and large, is a product that is most beneficial to elites like me and you. All of us here are elites. We can't exclude ourselves, but it is people like us that who benefit from this. And for the common man, what we can do to them, and what India did, was to have deployment of this CNG on all keke napep in India. When you see 90% of them are running on CNG, half of the cost of the price, the common people are protected by this. All commercial vehicles, anyone who has gone on a medical trip to India, all the taxis that you see in India are driven by CNG. So the PMS is left for me and you who have the exotic cars of all sorts to run. So yes, I agree that for today, without this being on ground, yes, you can't surely see immediate impact on the prices, but I can assure you that, yes, sir, yes, I'm done, sir. I'm very sorry, sir.